chapter. We are approaching the public theater. The crucial character in the attempt to modernize Polish nation during the Enlightenment is the last Polish king. The most radical character because his power actually was based on his connection to the Russian Empress Catherine II, Catherine the Great. She was actually bringing him to the throne. She was supporting him. And what is very paradoxical, a Russian empress actually was supporting all the reforms. He was introducing many, we would say today, avant-garde ideas. For example, very huge program of the religious tolerance. As I said, we have in Poland many different religious minorities. And he would introduce again, by support of Russian emperors, the Legal Tolerance Act. And next, he would introduce clearly reform of education. He would also establish first national public theater. Catherine the Great, this is the Russian Tsarist, and you can see here two examples of Polish theater, modern theater, which is of course dealing with Catherine. Catherine for Polish people is still this disastrous fate, the most dangerous empress ever, who would annihilate Polish nation, and actually she would force the partition. She would create no land of Polish country. And so this is a recent presentation of Catherine as this sexual animal, because in Poland we of course have many gossips that she was hyperactive sexually, and here you can see we try to show her as a kind of perversive character. For just like the foundations of this reform by the king, the radical transformation program of the state. First, he actually founded and created School of Chivalry, or we would call cadets corps. This would be very important because these cadets, they would be also learning by theater playing. Commission of National Education. This is really groundbreaking. This is actually the world's first Minister of Education in 1773. Monitor. This is the newspaper, extremely popular at the time. Of course, this journal is imitation of the Spectator, the British, very important in the Great United Kingdom. But this would be the first Polish newspaper with kind of social transformative mission. Part of this mission would be to create new democratic Pole, new citizen of this enlightenment, of this enlightened world, of this era of reason. They would try to educate these Polish people into this modern new citizen of regular world society. And even more importantly, they would use this monitor to explain what exactly is theater about. The treatises on acting, the treatises on neoclassical ideas, or about new ideas after neoclassicism collapses. All this would be written in monitor to kind of promote theater. So you would have not only political issues here, but also culture, also entertainment, and also kind of very total educative program for Polish people. And of course, public theater in 1765. So this is the image of this School of Chivalry in Warsaw. It was, of course, not long in work, but still this 20 years was enough. Commandant, first leader and first really founding father of this school was Prince Adam Czartoryski. Again, this is from very, very famous and rich family who was always very involved in political situation in Poland. They would try to kind of intervene. The first, and what he creates, the first non-religious and free public school to educate new citizens in the Polish language by promoting individual thinking. From 1770, the stage plays. He himself wrote 7, starting with the most popular of his plays, A Miś to be wet, Panna na wydanie. And of course, this is not, again, original production. This is based, sometimes literary, on the British very famous actor and playwright Derek, A Miss in Her Teens. And the titles of his comedies are just like Coffee, Twins, Gambler, something like this. And they are again imitation of some British plays, not really interesting today. This A Miss to be wet is the only interesting place. What is this? This is also kind of programmatic play. In the preface to the publication, based on Jean-Baptiste Dubas' Réflexion critique sur la poésie et la peinture, Czartoryski presented detailed lecture on the theory and history of theater. He also promoted neoclassical rules of 3 unites. These are the unity of action, place, and time. Next, Czartoryski explains the principle of composition. What is correct exposition, correct intrigue, and how you should solve the intrigue. The historical argument is followed by a practical part in which the author teaches how to write comedies and tragedies. He also writes about acting. An actor or an actress must transform herself into the person she represents, get so close to the truth, adopt the tone and gesture so that the audience, deceived by the actor, forgets the actor altogether and thinks only of the character in the play. Of course, this is nothing new. We have now scholar articles by young scholars in Poland who compare all these theoretical writings by Czartoryski to the treatises in French, especially Diderot, for example. There were many French theoreticians of theater who actually introduced these neoclassical ideas. Sometimes he was translating this literally, but nevertheless, he is making this published in Polish, and he's trying to impose these new ideas on Polish audience to explain what actually is his theater proposal about. And here is the play itself. Juliana Pięknicka, which we can translate the beauty one, the titular Miss to be wed, has several admirers, but the one she cares about, Zalotnicki, I will translate this, the wooing one, went far away to war. Out of melancholy and partly for fun, Pięknicka, the beautiful lady, allows herself to be adored by 3 others. She enjoys it until her aunt decides to marry her to one of them, the old colonel. Meanwhile, Zalotnicki, the boy, is back, having come from the war for a while to find a girl. However, his uncle lives in Warsaw, with whom Zalotnicki, we would know why, but he would prefer to avoid meeting. He sends his servant to ask about the girl. The servant meets his wife, whom he left without a word half a year earlier. The wife, in turn, another coincidence, is a maid of this Miss Pięknicka, this beauty. In the end, the old colonel, to wed Pięknicka, reveals himself as the father of this boy Złotnicki and steps aside to let his son marry the girl. So this whole plot, all action is in one place, the time is very short, and the action is also united. And so this is very clear example of this theatrical unities. But funny thing happened. The first performance took place on the stage of Cadet Corps Theatre, this school of chivalry. During this comedy, two mirrors, actually chandeliers, broke off and fell off the ground with such a force that they all broke and injured some distinguished spectators, including very important aristocrat Branicki in his leg. They also wounded Chamberlain Khmelnytska in her forehead. One even fell near the place where the king was sitting, and as this is the spy Johann Heine report, the interregnum was closed, so the end of the king was also closed. King could be killed. The engineers from the Cadet Corps probably did not cope with the technique, and when lowering the curtain, detached the weights from the chandeliers, and this caused the tragedy. And so very dramatical first performance. One of the most famous students in this cadet school, best known alumni, was Tadeusz Kościuszko, very important person for Polish movement to liberate Poland, unfortunately failing, and also very important character in the struggle of the American people for independence. So here are costumes of these students. This is the situation of the lesson, and so this is also very theatrical. In order to be well educated in this here school of chivalry, you would supposed to use costume, you were supposed to be behaving in a particular way. They also introduced body training. They introduced a lot of movement in the teaching schedule. So this was something really very modern in idea. They tried to combine the physical prowess with intellectual cognitive skills. And so this was the idea, to educate really new citizens of the world, to just like stop this backward traditional heavy emphasis of Polish young people. And so the third foundation of this reform is this monitor. Like British Spectator, it's really publishing a lot of important treatises, a lot of important interventions promoting religious tolerance, promoting science, and especially criticizing feudal manners, which of course were dominating during this time. As concerns the theater, the public theater will be open in this building, wooden building, which was standing earlier. This is called in Warsaw Operalnia, Opera House. It could have around 500 spectators. The audience was relatively huge. And this was the first public theater building with special seats for townspeople admitted for free. And as you can see, from 1748, you could see performances, but of course, most of the time, these performances were acted by French actors. Sometimes Commedia dell'arte actors from Italy would visit here. So most of the time, you would have foreign artists performing here. Only in this 1765, in this space, the first Polish theater would be produced. This is another image of this theater building. So today, this was destroyed. Today, there is nothing like this. The new National Theatre would be built much later. But this is the place where the National Theatre actually was born. And the first play, it's of course very anecdotic, very funny. They couldn't find the playwright to write Polish first drama for opening of the National Public Theatre. The king was trying to persuade Bohomolec. This guy I was talking before, very, very skillful Jesuit. But he was afraid that he is not good enough in writing female characters, and he was ashamed. I am not good enough to write for the national public stage. No, I can do it for the school theater. And so these negotiations failed. Another character was this Józef Bielawski. He was not a good poet, but he was the only one who, at the beginning, agreed to write Polish play for this opening. But after he realized what he decided to do, he again felt ashamed, probably, and he ran away from Warsaw, far away to some provincial village, and he was hiding against the king. So the king was sending him rich gifts. He was trying to persuade him with money. At the end, he was actually translating into Polish one of Molière's very popular plays. We can translate this in Polish, Intruders. And at the end, he was also directing, and of course, because he needed ladies to play female characters, these aristocratic families offered some very important ladies to join the company. Of course, these were married ladies, so the husbands were not so much happy. And this Bielawski was not only directing, he was also filtering. He was having an affair with one of this lady. She even get pregnant with him. So she had to divorce his husband. The husband was chasing, was of course calling for a duel, this director. He was trying to avoid this. And so all this was just like a series of scandals, because ladies were introduced, and these were married ladies, and the husbands and the love stories, love affairs were almost destroying this whole idea. This comedy, as I say, was based on Le Fauché, the Bourse, which was not classical play by Molière, not this one of these comedies, but something that was involving dances, also music. So that's why he chose this, because he tried to bring something spectacular to the audience. And so this is the poster advertising this play. The plot, the prologue and epilogue were most important. Talia comes down from Parnas. This is the muse. And she sighs to abolish Sarmatian customs, so all traditional noble Polish customs, and laughs at the wise side of such gross addictions. Now she turns directly towards the royal box. Fate has left this honor to you, Stanisław, meaning the king, so that following the example of the great Louis XIV, you would allow me to breathe the spirit in the Polish language. The author also addresses the king in the epilogue. Today, you are opening the theater of Polish defects and mistakes. And later, when your people put on the perfect form of man, when the drunkard with the map maker and the old gourmet, idler, a flatterer, an intruder will know his vices, future generations will remember this. So again, this educative dimension was present. The plot, the intruders hold the count, who is in love with Lucinda. They interrupt him to meet his lover, and then to write her a letter. The first is the narcissist Chpiotowski, a tweet, a fribble, a thorough socialite who frequented high society and willingly talked about his social successes and his love conquest. Next comes Wiecznikowski, a petty nobleman, clinging to the doorknob of the powerful, begging for a penny. The graphomanic Drwigłowski comes to the count to read his bad poems. The Saxon spy Johann Christoph Heine reported to Francis Xaver Wettin regent of Saxony, son of August III, king of Poland and Lithuania till 1763. The comedy itself can rightly be called Polish, as everyone says, because of the extraordinary crowd that came to the theatre, not only made a terrible noise, but also thoroughly searched the pockets, where they found plenty of watches, snuff boxes, and handkerchiefs. Entrepreneurs collected over 500 ducats that evening, because many were eager to see the first performance of Polish comedy. And even due to the crowds, only some could be admitted, as all floors and corners were overcrowded. And of course, the spy later writes that most of these people were in their own everyday businesses. Only a small amount of these spectators actually would watch the play. The noise was so horrific. Unfortunately, this is the report written by somebody who was not eyewitness. This spy was reporting another, his friend, impression of this premiere. So he himself was not witnessing this. But we have some other evidences that this first premiere of National Polish Theatre was a disaster. Really, nobody could follow the plot because the noise was so huge. You couldn't find no place. The crowd was, of course, moving around. And as I say, people were dealing their businesses, they're doing their politics, they were shouting, they were quarreling. There were some beatings, they were beating each other sometimes in the corner. So there was as much action in the audience as on the stage. But still, this is the first Polish National Theatre production, and that's the poster which introduces the production. This actually was ticketed. Sometimes you have to pay to see the theatre. During one of the comedy repetitions between the second and the third act, one of the actresses suddenly suffered from colic and couldn't appear on stage in any way. Many spectators, including distinguished people, greatly regretted that the show could not be completed. Suddenly, one of Hetman Branicki's court officials declared that he knew the entire comedy from cover to cover by heart and would replace the sick actress if his master would allow it. He was dressed in women's dresses, and because he was a handsome boy, he looked like a girl. He played the role with what was then called universal applause. The next day, the senators and ladies attending the spectacle went to great lengths to send gifts to his daring boy. And of course, he got a lot of matrimonial offers, and at the end, he was, of course, wedding a very rich lady, and so he made his career. And so this kind of disaster situation actually turned upside down, and for this one character became a happy event. After this first performance,